At Thanksgiving, the silence in my parents' dining room was loud enough to rattle the fine china. My sister, Jessica, sat across from me, swirling her Pinot Noir with the casual arrogance of someone who has never been told no in her entire life. She mocked my solitary status with a pitying tilt of her head, a gesture she had perfected over 3 decades. "Elena, sweetie, could you pass the cranberry sauce?" Jessica asked. Her voice dripped with that high-fructose corn syrup sweetness, a tone she had honed during her 36-year reign as the family's golden child. As she reached across the table, her diamond engagement ring caught the chandelier light, shooting a prism of glare directly into my eyes. It was intentional. Everything Jessica did was a calculated performance. I handed her the crystal bowl without a word. "It's been 2 years since we've all been together like this, my mother," Margaret sighed, looking around the table with a staged contentment. "And I still can't get over how spectacular Jessica's wedding was. The florist bill alone was more than a down payment on a luxury sedan. Here we go. The 14th review of the event of the decade. That country club has a 5-year waiting list," Mom continued, cutting a piece of meat that looked as dry as parchment paper. "But Jessica's husband has connections. Richard knows people everywhere," Jessica beamed, clutching the arm of the man next to her. Richard, a successful litigation attorney, flashed a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, a politician's grin practiced in a bathroom mirror. "Perks of the job," Richard said smoothly. "When you win big cases, doors open." I sliced into my turkey. It crumbled into dust. This was the game. They talked times at times me, never times to times me. I was the prop in their family theater. "So, Elena," Jessica started, her tone shifting to that condescending register she reserved specifically for me. "When are you going to settle down? You're 36 now. The clock is ticking louder than you think." My father, Arthur, cleared his throat but kept his eyes glued to his plate. He was the silent enabler, his passivity a weapon in itself. "She's been seeing that boy for 4 years, Mom interrupted before I could breathe. "What's his name? Lucas? The computer one?" "Right. The IT guy," Jessica laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Does he even own a suit? Or just hoodies?" Richard chuckled politely. The trap was set. They were waiting for me to snap, to cry, to be the emotional mess they always painted me as. But today was different. Today, I wasn't the victim. I was the prosecutor. "Actually," I said, placing my fork down with deliberate precision, "I'm not single anymore. I'm married." The room was frozen. The only sound was the grandfather clock in the hallway, counting away the seconds of their shock. Jessica's mouth hung open, unhinged. My mother's fork clattered onto her porcelain plate. "You... what?" Mom finally choked out. "I've been married for 7 months," I said, my voice steady, devoid of the tremor they expected. "Since April. Lucas and I eloped, then had a ceremony." "That's impossible," Jessica snapped, her face flushing. "We would have known. You didn't invite us." "I did," I replied, reaching into my purse. "I sent invitations to everyone at this table. Certified mail." "We never got them," my father found his voice, looking genuinely confused. "Elena, we would have come." I pulled out my phone. I had been preparing for this moment for months, gathering proof like a detective building a homicide case. I knew about the intercepted mail. I knew about the deleted emails, and I was about to burn their denial to the ground. "Let me show you exactly who signed for them," I said, unlocking my screen. I didn't scream. I didn't flip the table. Instead, I slid my phone across the lace tablecloth toward my father with the practiced, smooth motion of a blackjack dealer, revealing a winning hand. "Look at the date, Dad," I instructed, my voice calm but carrying across the room. "April 24th, 10:42 a.m. My father squinted at the screen, his reading glasses perched precariously on his nose. "This is postal tracking?" "It's a delivery confirmation for certified mail," I corrected him, leaning back in my chair. 5 separate envelopes, 5 tracking numbers, all delivered to this address at the exact same time. The room was so quiet I could hear the hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. My mother leaned in, her eyes darting between the phone and Jessica's face, which had drained of all color, leaving her foundation looking like a mask of dry clay. And here, I swiped to the next image, one of several screenshots I had organized into a folder specifically named × the receipt *. This is the signature confirmation from the carrier's tablet. I zoomed in on the image. The signature wasn't a scribble. It was a distinct, loopy script with hearts dotting the I's. It was the handwriting of a girl who had practiced signing autographs in her high school notebooks. "That's Jessica's signature," I said. "Unmistakable." That could be a forgery," Richard interjected, his legal instincts kicking in to defend his wife. He adjusted his cufflinks, a nervous tic I'd noticed over the years. Digital signatures are notoriously unreliable in court. Without a witness, this is hardly admissible evidence. I smiled at him. It wasn't a nice smile. "We aren't in a courtroom, Richard. We're at a Thanksgiving dinner where the turkey is dry and the lies are overflowing. But if you want to play lawyer, let's look at the timeline." I took a sip of my wine, savoring the oaky finish. April 24th was a Tuesday. "Jessica, you weren't working that day because you were preparing for your bachelorette weekend in Cabo. You stopped by here around 10:30 to drop off Mom's birthday gift early." Jessica's eyes widened. "How? How could you possibly know that?" "Because I called Mom at 11 a.m. to ask if she received a special package," I replied. "She told me you had just left. She also told me no mail had arrived that day." My mother blinked, the memory slowly surfacing through the fog of her denial. I remember that phone call. You asked about a catalog." "I asked about the invitations," I corrected her gently. "You said nothing came. I thought it was a mistake with the post office. But then I checked the tracking. Delivered. Signed for by J. Miller." I turned my gaze to my sister. She looked small now, shrinking into her chair, the diamond ring on her finger suddenly looking heavy, like a shackle rather than a trophy. "You intercepted the mail," I stated. It wasn't a question. "You saw envelopes with my return address heavy, cream-colored envelopes that clearly contained wedding invitations, and you signed for them. Then you made them disappear." "This is ridiculous," Jessica stammered, her voice rising an octave. "Why would I do that? I have better things to do than steal mail." "Do you?" I countered. "Because from where I'm sitting, hiding the proof of my happiness seems like exactly the kind of hobby you'd pick up." "Elena!" My father's voice cracked like a whip, startling everyone. "Are you accusing your sister of a federal crime?" "I'm not accusing her, Dad. I'm showing you the documentation." I pulled up another image. "This is the invoice from the stationer. Custom letterpress, gold foil. Paid for by me. Shipped to you. Received by her." Richard looked at the phone, then at his wife. His expression shifted from protective to calculating. He was doing the math. He knew what the documents meant. "Jessica," Richard said, his voice dangerously low, "did you sign for a package on April 24th? "I don't recall," she cried out, tears welling up in her eyes instantly, a defense mechanism she had perfected since she was 5. "I sign for things all the time. Maybe I put it on the counter and it got lost. Why is everyone attacking me?" "Because you didn't just lose them," I said, my voice dropping to a register that commanded absolute attention. "You erased them, and I can prove that too." "There was an email," I said, my voice cutting through Jessica's crocodile tears. "May 29th, subject line, wedding details and RSVP reminder." "We never got an email," Mom insisted, her voice trembling slightly. "I check my inbox every day. I would have seen it." "You didn't see it because it was deleted," I explained calmly. "Permanently." I tapped my phone screen again, bringing up a new document. This one wasn't a photo, it was a log file, lines of code and timestamps, the kind of data that makes most people's eyes glaze over, but makes a software engineer like Lucas smile. "Lucas helped me pull the activity logs for the family email account," I said. "Since I set it up for you years ago, I still have administrator access." Jessica stopped crying. Her eyes flicked to Richard, then back to me, wide with a new kind of fear. "See this entry?" I pointed to a line highlighted in yellow. "May 29th, 8:36 p.m. The email from me was opened. Read for 45 seconds. Then moved to trash. Then the trash folder was emptied 2 minutes later. "So? Maybe Mom accidentally deleted it," Jessica said quickly, grasping at straws. "From this IP address?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "The one assigned to your laptop, Jessica? The MacBook Pro you got for Christmas last year?" Richard stiffened. As a lawyer, he understood digital footprints better than anyone at the table. He knew exactly what an IP log meant in a court of law. It was a smoking gun. You logged into Mom's email from your laptop, I continued, my voice devoid of emotion. You saw my message pleading for a response because the wedding was 6 weeks away, and you hit delete. That's an invasion of privacy, Jessica shrieked, standing up so abruptly her chair scraped loudly against the hardwood floor. You hacked us. I checked the security logs of an account ×I created. I corrected her. Hardly hacking, but nice try at deflecting. Jessica, Richard said, his voice dangerously quiet. Sit down. Don't tell me what to do, she snapped at him. Did you delete her email? He asked, ignoring her outburst. I don't remember. You don't remember logging into your mother's account and deleting an invitation to your sister's wedding? Richard's tone was incredulous. Because that's a very specific thing to forget. My father looked from me to Jessica, his face a mask of confusion and betrayal. Jessica, is this true? She looked trapped. The golden child was finally cornered. Her perfect facade was cracking, revealing the ugly, petty jealousy underneath. It was a mistake, she blurted out. I was just cleaning up the inbox. Mom hates spam. My wedding invitation is spam? I asked, tilting my head. You know what I mean, she yelled. You always make everything about you. Look at me, I'm getting married. Look at me, I'm so happy. It was my year. I was planning my wedding. So you decided I couldn't have one? I didn't think you'd actually go through with it, she screamed. I thought if no one responded, you'd just give up, like you always do. The silence that followed was deafening. The truth hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. She had admitted it. She had sabotaged my wedding not out of malice, but out of a twisted need to keep the spotlight solely on herself. You erased me, I said softly. You intercepted my mail, deleted my messages, and let Mom and Dad believe I didn't care enough to invite them. You gaslit an entire family for your own ego. I was protecting them, she sobbed, burying her face in her hands. From your drama. My drama? I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Jessica, the only drama here is the one you manufactured? I looked at my parents. They were staring at their favorite daughter as if seeing a stranger for the first time. The illusion was shattered. But you, I said, turning my gaze to my mother. You aren't innocent in this either. Elena, my mother began, her voice wobbling. We didn't know. You have to believe us. If we had known. If you had known what? I cut her off, my tone hardening. You would have come? Or you would have found another excuse? Of course we would have come, my father insisted, his face pale. It's your wedding. Is it? I laughed, a short, humorless sound. Because for the last 2 years, I've been invisible to you. I stood up, pacing the small space between the table and the buffet. I drove 4 hours from Chicago for every single holiday. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, Mom's birthday, Dad's retirement party, Jessica's engagement dinner, her bridal shower, her bachelorette brunch. I was there, smiling, buying gifts I couldn't afford, sleeping on the pull-out couch that smells like mothballs while Jessica got the guest room. We appreciate that, Elena, Mom said weakly. We really do. Do you? I challenged. Because in 2 years, not one of you has visited me. Not once. You've never seen my apartment. You've never met my friends. You don't even know the name of the company I work for. Silence stretched across the table again. My father looked down at his hands, ashamed. It's water something, isn't it? He mumbled. I work in environmental conservation, Dad, I said, my voice thick with unshed tears. I manage projects that protect the Great Lakes. Last year, I led a team that secured a $5 million grant for clean water initiatives. It was a huge deal. I was on the local news. That's wonderful, honey, Mom said, but her eyes were darting to Jessica, checking on her golden child. I sent you the link to the interview, I continued. You never watched it, but when Jessica got a promotion to senior assistant buyer at a retail chain, you threw her a dinner party. That's not fair, Jessica cried, wiping her eyes with a napkin that was already smeared with mascara. My job is important too. I'm not saying it isn't, I said, looking at her directly. I'm saying that in this family, only one person's life matters, and it's never been mine. We love you both equally, Mom protested, the lie slipping out automatically. No, You don't, I said simply. And that's okay. I've accepted it, but don't insult my intelligence by pretending otherwise. I looked at the empty chair next to me. Lucas wanted to come today. He wanted to meet you all, despite everything. Despite the fact that his parents, people he's only known for 4 years, have treated me more like a daughter in 7 months than you have in my entire life. His parents were at the wedding? My father asked quietly. Yes, I said, softening slightly at the thought of them, and his sister, and his brother, and 20 of our closest friends. It was small, intimate, beautiful. We got married in a conservatory filled with plants, not expensive flowers that die in a day. We ate tacos from a food truck because that's what we love. We danced to ADS music until midnight. I pulled up a photo on my phone, just one. Me and Lucas, laughing, my dress simple and elegant, his suit sharp, joy radiating from our faces. I was happy, I said, showing it to them. Truly, deeply happy. And I realized something that day. I didn't need you there to make it real. I didn't need your approval to be valid. Elena, my mother started, reaching for my hand. I pulled back. I'm done trying to earn my place in this family. I'm done begging for scraps of attention while Jessica gets the whole feast. I'm done being the backup plan, the scapegoat, the punching bag. I looked at Jessica, whose face was a mask of misery and resentment. You can have them, I said. You can have all the attention, all the praise, all the pressure. It's yours. I don't want it anymore. Where are you going? My father asked as I grabbed my purse. Home, I said. To my husband, to my life, to people who actually see me. The silence in the dining room was absolute as I turned my back on them. I walked out of the house I grew up in, the place where I had learned to be quiet, to be small, to be the supporting character in Jessica's life. The November air hit me like a slap, cold and bracing. I inhaled deeply, the scent of decaying leaves and wood smoke filling my lungs. It smelled like freedom. I was halfway to my rental car when the front door banged open. Elena. Wait. It wasn't my father. It wasn't my mother. It was Jessica. She ran down the porch steps without her coat, her arms wrapped around herself against the chill. Her mascara was smeared, her perfect hair wind-blown. For a second, she looked like the little sister I used to share a bunk bed with, the one who would sneak into my blankets during thunderstorms. What do you want, Jessica? I asked, my hand on the car door handle. Another chance to explain how my wedding ruined your year? No, she choked out, shivering. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I stared at her. Sorry you got caught? No, she whispered, tears streaming down her face again. But this time, they looked different, less performative, more desperate. I'm sorry I did it. I'm sorry I'm so messed up. Why? I asked, the question that had been burning in my chest for months. Just tell me why. You have everything. Mom and Dad worship you. You have the rich husband, the big house, the perfect life. Why did you need to take this from me? Because you were happy, she said, her voice trembling. You were genuinely happy, and I'm not. The confession hung in the cold air between us. What are you talking about? Look at me, Elena, she said, gesturing to her diamond ring, her designer dress. It's all a show. Richard, he's controlling. He criticizes everything I do. My weight, my clothes, my laugh. Mom and Dad. They don't love times me asterisk. They love the idea of me. The trophy daughter. The success story. She took a shuddering breath. When I saw your invitation, it was so simple, so real. You and Lucas, you didn't need to prove anything to anyone. You just loved each other. And it made me feel empty, like a fraud. So you tried to destroy it, I said flatly. I tried to hide it, she corrected, wiping her nose with her sleeve. Because if Mom and Dad saw you happy, really happy, maybe they'd realize that my life isn't perfect. That times I'm times not perfect. And then, what would I have left? It was pathetic. It was tragic. And it was exactly the kind of twisted logic that thrives in a family built on appearances. That's not an excuse, Jessica, I said, my voice firm but no longer angry. It's an explanation, but it doesn't fix anything. I know, she sobbed. I know I ruined it. I know you hate me. I don't hate you, I said, surprising myself. I pity you. You're trapped in a cage you helped build, but I'm not staying in there with you anymore. Will you ever forgive me? She asked, looking up at me with pleading eyes. I don't know, I answered honestly. Forgiveness takes time, and right now, I don't have any left for you. I opened the car door. Goodbye, Jessica. Elena, please. I got in and started the engine. As I pulled away, I saw her standing alone on the driveway, shivering in her expensive dress, watching the taillights of the only person who had ever really seen her fade into the darkness. The drive back to my real life took 4 hours, but it felt like 4 minutes. My phone buzzed incessantly. Mom, Dad, even Richard, sending a LinkedIn request I immediately blocked. I didn't answer. I let the voicemails pile up like unread mail. When I pulled into the driveway of the small bungalow Lucas and I had bought together, the porch light was on. It was a beacon in the darkness, a warm yellow glow that promised safety. Lucas opened the door before I even got out of the car. He was wearing his favorite worn-out hoodie and holding 2 mugs. Hey, he said softly as I walked up the steps, his eyes searching my face. You okay? I think so, I managed, my voice finally breaking. It was a lot. I figured, he said, handing me one of the mugs. Hot chocolate, with the peppermint sticks from that little shop in Wisconsin we found on our honeymoon. I looked down at the steaming mug, the red and white candy cane melting into the rich brown liquid. It was such a small thing, a detail, but it was times our times detail. It was proof that someone listened, someone remembered, someone cared enough to make my favorite drink exactly the way I liked it. You remembered, I whispered, tears pricking my eyes again. But these were different tears. These were tears of relief, of gratitude. Of course I did, he said simply, pulling me into a hug with his free arm. That's what people do when they love someone, Elena. They pay attention. We stood there on the porch for a long time, just holding each other in the cold November air. The silence between us wasn't heavy or awkward like it had been at my parents' house. It was comfortable. It was peace. My mom called, Lucas said eventually, his chin resting on top of my head. She wanted to know if you survived the lion's den. I laughed, a shaky sound. Barely, but I made it out. She said to tell you dinner is at 2 tomorrow, he continued. And my dad wants to ask you about that water conservation project again. He read your latest report and has some questions about the filtration systems. My chest tightened. He read it? Cover to cover. Lucas smiled. He thinks you're brilliant. He's been bragging to his golf buddies about his daughter-in-law, the environmental scientist. Daughter-in-law? I repeated, testing the words. They sounded right. They sounded like belonging. Yeah, Lucas said, squeezing my shoulder. That's what you are. That's who we are. This is your family now, Elena, the one that actually wants you. We went inside, leaving the cold and the drama on the doorstep. The house smelled like cinnamon and roasted vegetables. Lucas had started prepping for our own quiet Thanksgiving. That night, lying in bed next to him, listening to his steady breathing, I realized something profound. Family isn't just DNA. It isn't obligation or guilt trips or performing for approval. Family is the people who show up. The people who celebrate your wins and hold you through your losses. The people who remember the peppermint sticks. I fell asleep without checking my phone once. The next day, Thanksgiving at Lucas's parents' house was loud, chaotic, and wonderful. There were no passive-aggressive comments about my weight or my job. No one compared me to anyone else. Lucas's mom hugged me so hard I thought my ribs might crack, and his dad spent an hour genuinely listening to me explain the intricacies of watershed management. You know, his dad said, leaning back in his recliner after dinner, a satisfied smile on his face, we're really lucky to have you in this family, Elena. I'm the lucky one, I said, and for the first time in my life, I truly meant it. 2 weeks later, an email arrived in my inbox. The subject line was simply, amends. It was from Jessica. She wrote that she had started therapy, real therapy, not the spa retreats she used to call self-care. She admitted that her need for validation was a bottomless pit that no amount of praise could fill. She confessed that the pressure of being the executor of the family trust and securing the inheritance had turned her into someone she didn't recognize. She wrote about how the fear of being less than had driven her to try and erase my happiness. I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to Lucas without replying. My father added me back to the family group chat a few days later. I didn't leave the group, but I didn't participate either. I simply muted the notifications. That was the difference now. I knew how to set boundaries. I knew that access to me was a privilege, not a right. For months, we existed in a state of low contact. I focused on my work, on Lucas, on the life we were building in Chicago. I finished my drought pattern research. We hosted dinner parties for our friends. We lived. Then, in March, Mom fell and broke her hip. Dad called me, his voice raspy with panic. He didn't demand I come. He didn't guilt-trip me. He just asked, "Elena, I know we haven't. I know things are strained. But she's asking for you." I thought about it for a long hour. I thought about the no-contact period I had considered making permanent. But then I realized something. Staying away out of anger was just another form of being controlled by them. I drove down the next morning. When I walked into the hospital room, Mom looked small. The formidable matriarch who had ruled our lives with an iron fist was just an elderly woman in a hospital gown, hooked up to monitors. "Elena," she whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "You came." "I'm here, Mom," I said, taking a seat in the plastic chair next to the bed. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice slurring slightly from the pain medication. "About the wedding. About everything. I'm sorry I wasn't the mother you needed." It wasn't a perfect apology. It didn't erase the years of neglect or the sting of the Thanksgiving dinner, but it was a start. Jessica arrived that evening. We sat on opposite sides of the bed, the silence between us heavy but not hostile. She looked tired, stripped of her usual glamour. She gave me a tentative smile, and I nodded back. We weren't friends. We might never be close sisters again, but the war was over. I stayed for 3 days to help organize Mom's home care. I dealt with the insurance companies, cooked meals for Dad, and organized their medication schedules. I did it efficiently, competently, and without expecting a single thank you. On the last day, as I packed my bag to leave, Dad stopped me in the hallway. "You've built a good life, Elena," he said, looking me in the eye. "I'm proud of you." "I know, Dad," I said softly. "I'm proud of me too." Driving back to Chicago, watching the miles of highway stretch out before me, I felt lighter than I had in years. I hadn't gone back to seek their approval. I hadn't gone back to fix them. I had gone back because I was strong enough to handle it. I had my answer. I didn't need to be the golden child. I didn't need to be the victim. I was just Elena. And for the first time, that was more than enough.